just gonna hit the record. Okay. So thanks, Lara, for being here today and accepting to release a testimonial for our work together. And how are you today?
Okay, thank you, Lou.
Fantastic. So we start with the first question. As we worked a couple of years back together, and if I am correct, you messaged me because you found me through Dale's podcast or something. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to tell me a little bit about that period, if you remember, like how were you doing? I know you were doing very well with your business, but just like an understanding of what situation were you in, and why did you think, oh, I can work with Lou? Like let's see, contact them and see if we can work together. And were you
Yeah,
can?
so you're right. I think I've been a guest on Dale's podcast, and I'd seen you, and I was in the sort of the start of this growth journey. So I knew I wanted to change things up, and I knew I wanted to kind of do things slightly differently, or get an outside perspective on my business, because I'd never kind of opened up how I did things before or what I was doing to anyone. But equally, every time I've kind of spoken to anyone in the business, in the accounting industry, they'd always been, well, you're doing things differently to us. We don't think we can help. We're not sure what, because you're doing things very differently. So I wanted a very different perspective. I wanted someone to come in from a business owner perspective, from that side of things, looking at me and comparing my business to other businesses, as opposed to just comparing me to other businesses in kind of the accounting and bookkeeping space. And so I kind of messaged you on LinkedIn, and we had a bit of a chat, and I was like, oh, I think Lou could do that. They could come in and have a look at what was going on, where those bottlenecks might be, the things that I needed to change. I knew there was going to be some mindset work and some things that I needed to change. And kind of from our chats, I felt like you were really well placed to kind of do that and come in and look at it and say, right, okay, not just comparing, as I say, like comparing me to other businesses, comparing what I was doing, looking at business strategy from a whole, not just from how do I make this a good bookkeeping practice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I didn't know that I was the first consultant looking at your business, actually. That's such an honor. Thank you. I had no idea because you've been doing so well for so long that I just assumed you must have already had so many different consultants and stuff. So well done for like literally getting no support until and also like we really worked more because you already had a good strategy. You already had uh, you know things that were working well. Like I think if I remember correctly at that time, the most pressing issue was feeling that you wanted a little bit more time for yourself and kind of feel yourself again because you love your work, and for everyone that loves their work, it's very easy to get lost in it sometimes a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think at that time you had this desire of like, I know that I can carve my time back, but what's the best way to go about it? Like you already had different ideas, and when I came in, it was a case of like helping you taking the decisions that made sense to you. And as you said, yes, I do look at the businesses as what is in front of me. I don't compare. Also because I do encourage people to do things their way. I think is really healthy to build a business the way you want it, for a number of reasons. But that's why it's also more powerful and more impactful what you do. So do you remember a little bit more of because our work stretched over time, because like we didn't do all the 8 sessions straight away. We did the first few which were more about strategy, like okay, what are the moving parts, what are things that actually can change. So yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about how did you find just our work together, the support that you got, if you remember anything specific that you thought, oh, I never thought about that, or anything that really you felt that was really helpful in that moment, like when we were during the period we were working together.
Well, I think there was that balance of accountability, because he made me set some goals and made sure I was doing them, but equally that kind of looking at and that support side of things. So looking at things like the focus map, which I've still gone back to time and again, kind of where could I free up time, as you said, within my practice, and what could I offsource, outload, and also what wasn't serving me as a business owner. So that's something I've done quite a few times since, and actually got a lot better at delegating, you'll be pleased to know, and a lot better at kind of asking for help since then. At kind of like, because I was trying to do everything myself, and you made me kind of very aware of how much I was trying to hold, and that wasn't serving me or my business in that way. And then doing things like backcasting, working out, okay, what's the goal, and how do I break that down kind of into those little bite-sized pieces, so that I was kind of, okay, working towards that end goal. And also things like giving me encouragement around, I know we talked about pricing and all these kind of things, and saying, right, what would my ideal business look like? And not being afraid to say some big numbers, or not being afraid to kind of say, right, okay, I'm actually going to get rid of clients that aren't sitting well within my practice anymore, and balancing that all out. So it was kind of like there was a everything was working towards a bigger goal, but equally within that there were all these little different tools and techniques that you gave me that I could kind of use together, and as I say, have used again since, around how do I make that goal not feel so big? How do I kind of work towards it and tick these things off and make each step, make that have an impact on the business?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, like I'm definitely keen on keep updating the focus map and all these tools, because I kind of like re-update them every thought set of clients. If I notice something that maybe I could it could be explained better. So I'm glad that people still use those tools, because I developed it's a mix of tools that I actually learned from like business books and stuff, but then my own experience, and then how I modified them to the way that I think should be working. So I love that people still use them, because they helped me so much. So I love that. Thank you. And probably final question is more about the after, right? So after we finished our sessions, you were already like really confident. Your business was already doing very well. So it was more a case of like restructuring your strategy, and also carving more time for yourself, and encourage you to take time off, and delegation, like you said. So since now it's been over a year, like past that kind of process, how do you feel that has changed your business? What were the results? You can tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, the first thing was I wasn't guilty about giving myself that kind of time off, and working it so that I was more structured and more kind of freedom as well, to say, right, okay, if I'm going to have a day off, or I'm going to go away for a week, which I did in the middle of our sessions, was like, I can do this and I can not feel like I'm tied to the business. So that was one thing. And the second thing, as I said, was a delegation, being able to give someone kind of a bit more, give my VA a bit more, lean on her a bit more. And also the kind of, you kind of kicked off, as I said, you were the first, but I've had a few people in since for different areas of the business. So for example, I've worked with someone a bit more on kind of content and things like that, because I was kind of, I think when because I'd kind of done 10 years plus before I got to you, and I got this business to a stage, and it was like I was afraid of letting go of it a little bit, because it was my baby, and I was like, I've got to hold all the moving parts. It all relies on me. Whereas now I'm a lot freer to kind of say, actually, the best way to move forward is to use the right people at the right times. I always tell this to my clients: you outsource your finance to me, and I help you like free up that mental load. And working with you made me realize what that actually difference could be, and how, yes, could grow on my own, but I could grow so much better with support around me, and with these kind of other tools and different perspectives. And also, again, different perspectives from different areas of business, because I think that's the thing, is I think for 10 years or 10 plus years, I'd had my head in just being a bookkeeping person. So that's why the mentors in the industry didn't feel like they fit. I didn't feel like I fit into what they were talking about. And then I came across you, and it was like there were things in there that really resounded with me. And as well, with me having kind of chronic illness and things like that anyway, your whole thing around the burnout and avoiding burnout, and the stories around that as well, really, really resonated. And because I could see myself pushing myself to a place where in order to grow the business, I was going maybe forward with my business, but backwards with my health. So having that ability to have a really different perspective, a different set of eyes on my business, that like we worked together in our sessions, and I know I kind of dragged them out a little bit longer, but we really worked together and I was really focused and really excited for our next session. And the reason I dragged them out was because I wanted to be in the right place to have those calls with you and in the right mindset and have properly done that work in between, because I felt like that was the way that I could get the best from each session, was by having kind of sat down and spent some time and gone through it and gone over things, so that the next session we weren't just rehashing what we'd done in the last session, we were actually continuously moving forwards. And I think by the end of it, I had a lot better idea of where I wanted. Well, I had a second business idea, which has taken a little bit of time to come to fruition, but is now kind of full steam ahead. And I had kind of all these different things going. I had different techniques, different ideas to use to take the business as a whole forward. And what we started with was that I wanted to essentially turn over the same amount of money with less time and less pressure on me. And that was something I've been able to do in the last financial year, is I increased my growth ever so slightly, but I did it without so much of me in the business.
Yeah, I love that. And you ended up working also with stylists and like photographers. Shout out to Samantha and Wendy. But yeah, how did you find that process as well to like connect? Because they're also professionals that I like to recommend, because they're also one of a kind, right? They're people that have been through the very similar struggles, very similar perspectives, and they decided to also make their own business unique and to trust their intuition and their knowledge of what's best for their clients, for example. So how did you find extending work with other people that were kind of similar, with a similar ethos?
Yeah, well, I think it all kicked off, didn't it, with one of the things we talked about, and I kind of came out of the sessions, was around my branding and all that kind of thing. So we kicked off with Jane, obviously redoing the LJM logo and that kind of thing, and Alfie sort of, because I was rebuilding my website, so Alfie kind of ripping into my website a little bit and having a look at that from his perspective. And then that's grown into also Samantha and working with her on, as you say, but branding, but personal branding as well, and kind of getting myself out there and being a bit more confident with things. So this year I did a solo speech at a conference where I actually pitched to the conference and got the slot. And then Wendy and her amazing energy that comes about. So I've just had another photo shoot with Wendy last week. So I have currently got like loads of photos to go through that again are a very different vibe, because they've kind of encouraged me, as you did, to kind of things that I'd potentially seen as slight weaknesses, being younger, being a woman in finance, doing things slightly differently. They've all encouraged that as a very positive thing, and actually that's part of my USP, but equally to be a lot more me in my business, which again is something I know you advocate, is kind of like, yes, you can offload it, but the more heart and the more soul you put in personally, the more kind of that business reflects back to you and you have that connection with it. So these are all kind of people that I've worked with, and it feels like you kind of kicked off this chain reaction essentially of like, because before I didn't know those people because I wasn't in that sphere. So you were kind of the link that started everything off, that has now kind of led to something that, as I say, the last couple of weeks I've actually set the business idea I have with you now has its own separate limited company, and I'm going all in on it, and it's got its own branding and all sorts of things are happening now. And that all stems back from the mindset and the work that we did together to say, right, okay, this could be something, this could, if I nailed it, if I root down I knew what my micro and macro pain points were and all these kind of things that we worked on, to now turn that into not just a sort of burdening idea, but a bud of an idea, but a bigger, actual fully fledged business.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited for your new updates and to see the new pictures as well. That this is the thing I loved the most, that after we stopped working, we didn't stop being in touch. Like you were giving me the updates of how you were taking action and everything. And I love that because, I that's what I strive for, is to leave people with something that is durable and they can keep using. So the fact that that opened you up and you did, kept going out of your comfort zone. Like at some point, you're just nonstop. You're just like, yeah, I'm redoing the website. It's time to do it. I'm redoing this. I'm redoing that. Even the pictures, because you told me maybe you didn't feel as comfortable before, but now you had an amazing professional photographer that helped you. Yeah, but like valuing you and get your, yeah, you say USP, and like it is true, like you're unique in what you do, and that's what makes you special, and that's what makes you you. And I think it's awesome that like you kept meeting professionals that would encourage that, because I think that's what we need to see more in any industry. So yeah, do you have any other final words before we close these up?
No, I think, as I say, the reason I came to you was I was like, who's got? I didn't want someone that was going to confirm my own views. I wanted someone that was going to challenge me, that was going to have a very different perspective on business and on life to where I was. So it was kind of that step out of that comfort zone. And I was like, Lou, with all your experiences, were best placed to kind of come in and not be critical in terms of being really down, but being critical in terms of looking at this from an outside perspective of everything that you've taken with work and with life and everything else. And I knew that the way to push myself was to get voices different to me and to get ideas different to me. And it was kind of that. I'm really pleased that I made that first step and said, right, okay, let's work with Lou, because they have a different take on things, a different idea on things. I know we all do, but you don't want to be in a situation. I didn't want someone that was just going to say yes, that was going to say you're doing great things. I wanted someone that was going to push me outside of my comfort zone and go, well, okay, you're doing quite well in this, but what could we do better? And that was the first thing to kind of, it was scary, but it was what I needed at that time, of kind of, rather than just resting on my laurels and saying, right, okay, I'm just going to stick with this business as is, and yes, I could continue and I could do that. Whereas now I've got an ambition that came about because of having those conversations, that was like, okay, I can take this to something big.
I love that. I definitely see you like in your super boss era. Like I can definitely see like in your aura and just everything you've been doing the past 2 years. I've definitely seen the shift, and that's the thing, is like it's thanks to you as well that this work was possible, because I can do my best, but sometimes people are not ready for certain shifts, because as you said, um, part of it is also mindset, because there is you're smart enough to do all that on your own, but sometimes it didn't happen on your own because you needed some support, external support, and you just needed a bit of more guidance of where to look and what to leave out and what to focus on. And so accepting the guidance, putting into action like you did, and all of that, it takes a lot of effort. So thank you for being an amazing client. I had the best time with you, and thanks for being here today for leaving a testimonial for me. We'll just say goodbye for today.